Hi guys, my name is Hemant and I'm an alcoholic in recovery. I haven't had a first drink today with the grace of God and the help I received from Alcoholics Anonymous. And at the outset, I want to thank Philip for the wonderful job he's doing since he's leading our back to basics step study. And thank you, Philip. God bless you always with the best of everything because you are really doing a tremendous job for the rest of us. Having said that, the 10th step and the 11th step are supposed to be the steps of maintenance, which means that I have to live life according to these, whatever I have learned in Alcoholics Anonymous, up in the first 9 steps. I have to now live by those principles. And those principles are pretty simple. What exactly is the 10th and the 11th step? The 11th step talking about, because the 12th I don't know if we'll do today, but what are the 10th and the 11th talking about? The 10th and 11th steps are basically talking about self-examination, prayer, and meditation. It's a circle. As far as I know, as far as I can understand, it's a circle. The 10th step tells us that in the night, just before you sleep, sit for a little while with calmness, with a calm mind, which basically means that you have to be in the contemplative mood. You have to get into a mood in which you can sit still and review your day, which is self-examination. Basically, review your day. Have you been dishonest, selfish, resentful, angry, irritable, irritable? All discontented, and everything else, which we were because we were emotional cripples when we came into Alcoholics Anonymous. And am I emotionally disturbed in any way? Have I hurt anybody? Love and tolerance is our code. That's what the 10th step basically says. So have I now reached a stage where I can contemplate and really look at whatever I have done? Self-examination. But the quiet time also starts the time of meditation because I have to seriously understand where I'm coming from. The 11th step is talking about prayer and meditation. It's talking about humility being the foundation stone of the whole program. When am I humble? When I'm anonymous. When am I anonymous? When I let myself be unselfish, absolute unselfishness. That's one of the four absolutes: piety, honesty, love, and unselfishness. Am I absolutely be of use to anybody else? When I'm prepared to subjugate my will to the will of God, thy will be done, not mine. When I say that, I'm actually praying. And prayer is the most powerful tool I have ever known. It's more powerful than anything else here. Nothing else works the way prayer does. I'm a drunk. I'm a drunk on the 15th of May once, and on the 16th of May, I stopped drinking. I'm powerless. How did this happen? How could I stop drinking? Did I have the power? If I had the power, if I had the power then, I wouldn't have become an alcoholic. I would have definitely never wanted to be an alcoholic, but I had no power. And yet, when the higher power came in, when I understood the concept of God, when I said, "Take me, I am yours to do with me as you will," that is when recovery started, and that means that I prayed. That means that I was ready to do God's will. And how do they talk about what do you say about meditation and prayer? Well, BLW, Ain, and Dr. Bob would sit together in that around the breakfast table in Akron. They would read something from the Bible, from Ain's Bible, King's Bible. It's supposed to be King James Bible. There's a group in Akron, still calls it that, the first A group ever. They would read from this King James Bible, which was A's basically, and then they would all sit in quiet contemplation with a page and a pen in front of them. And that's the quiet time. That's the meditation time. They would plan in that time whatever they wrote down, whatever thoughts came to them, but they also planned their day. How and where could they be of use to somebody else? Where and how could they be unselfish today? That's what the whole program is about. God, use me to do thy will. And that's what prayer and meditation and self-examination is all about. God, please use me. And do I succeed in that? No. So, but perfection is just a name here. I'm progressing into that mood and progressing into being able to say that and do that, to be able to be of use to you, to be of service, basically. What I'm doing right now is service. not only to the group, but to AA, because here I'm actually willing to be of some use to somebody else, not thinking of my own self, not thinking of what I can get out of this, but of what I can be of use to somebody else. And that's what this whole program is about. And since we are in the steps of maintenance, well, Philip, go ahead. It's all yours, my friend. And thank you once again for your input. It's been great so far, and I know it will be even greater from now onwards. Thank you, Philip. God bless you.
Thank you, Hemant, for moderating. Thank you, Arun, for chairing the meeting. Thank you, Sandeep, Vijay, Hillary, Narayan, all those who are instrumental in getting this thing on the platform and having us do this, and for all you wonderful members for turning up to make this possible, because without you and your validation, we wouldn't be able to continue with this. And so thank you so very much that to make me a part of something that I never would have belonged to. And that sense of belonging, and that today it's that sense of ease and comfort that comes to me when I see all you people in a meeting and I'm wanting to join you, where earlier the doctor's opinion would say ease and comfort that comes with a drink. So I look forward to these meetings because it's soothing. I calm down. I come to a set of people who think like me, talk like me. And that's where the recovery starts, So that's where I am. My name is Philip. I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. Oh, we have done, I said I was going to do step 11 and 12 today, but then the support staff thinks I need to do 9 and 10. So I would go by. Now, first of all, let me just commend all those newcomers here. And let me commend Harsha and Sunish for turning up for this meeting, and for all those newcomers in their first 7 days, 10 days of sobriety. Yeah? So could you just put your hands up so that I could read loud, the first year of sobriety? Bella, Shahanu, Sunesh, Harsha, Tejas, who else? Rajiv, Shabir, Joe, any more? Subhash, Nirasha. Anyone else? Vijay DC. Wow, it takes real courage to even put your hand up. I mean, this is acknowledging that, you're powerless over your chemical alcohol and your life was unmanageable and you need help. So it's called the gift of desperation. So, it takes courage. Thank you so much for turning up for this meeting and trying to look into yourself. You'll find the miracle in you, because the answers are in you. And what AA helps me is to find those answers for you. So here I am. Let me start off with why an alcoholic drinks, or what is alcoholism. Oh, and for those whom I forgot to wish Merry Christmas yesterday. Please feel welcome. Wish you a very happy Christmas and the coming season of goodwill and giving. We're coming up to today's Boxing Day, and it goes on. Every day is a celebration. To me, life is a celebration, which at one time was not. Life was a misery. I woke up every day to the dread and terror and bewilderment of, having to face alcohol, to a stage where, I couldn't live with or without it. I was walking a nightmare with my eyes wide open. Alcoholism had taken full hold of me, and I didn't know where to move. I was in chains. I was bonded, Whether I liked it or not, I succumbed to the desire of, going for that drink. My body was weak and frail. My spirit was lagging, and my health was down in the dumps. My relationships were all gone. My aspirations and love for life was fading away. My dreams were all broken. This is the state I came into Alcoholics Anonymous. And in Alcoholics Anonymous, they said, Philip, you need to identify yourself, what alcoholism is all about. And it says, if any individual who cannot guarantee his or her behavior after they picked up that first drink is essentially an alcoholic. A mental obsession so subtly powerful, that it succumbs to that power that, alcohol creates in my head, and I'd pick up a drink, Even if I don't want to, I'll go pick up a drink. And that's how powerful that sickness of alcoholism is. It's cunning, baffling, and powerful. It's a sickness of deception, self-deception. I am self-deceived. I believe I don't have a problem. The world has a problem, not me. If only they let me live the way I should, I wouldn't have a problem. So that's how self-deceived I was, how conniving alcohol is, cunning, baffling, powerful. So in the end, what happens is an alcoholic becomes cunning, baffling, and powerful. I find an escape route and I find an excuse to everything. And so large are my woes and problems that I just want to shut reality off. And so I go fetching that drink thinking, for now I'll shut it off, but that shutting off never happens. The next drink will, the next drink. So they call it the sickness of more. More drinks, more misery. And I was buying my own misery. I was slow poisoning myself. I was killing myself on installment, they call it, So, but that's the insanity of the whole thing about Alcoholics Anonymous. So I came to Alcoholics Anonymous and I had to accept the fact that, I'm powerless over this chemical alcohol and my life was unmanageable. So stopping drinking was never my problem. So once I stopped drinking, I realized that alcohol had done more damage to me than my problems, which were really not relevant until such time I picked up a drink. So I had to address my alcohol problem first before I started addressing the unmanageability of my life. So it's the unmanageability of my life that made me drink. Alcohol, I thought, was a catalyst, that could solve those problems, but alcohol generated more problems. So here I was, I started the first step says I'm powerless over alcohol and my life is unmanageable. The first half of the first step, I accept the fact that I'm an alcoholic and stop drinking with the help of those people in the classrooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And now this is where the miracle happened, came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. The first time the word power greater than myself comes into being. Now, what is this power greater than myself? And who is this power greater than myself is something I had to understand by myself. So I realized being a complex person, complicated, and, instincts totally, damaged, couldn't think properly. My sponsor then told me, the KA classrooms are a power greater than yourself. They have kept you sober. And if you want to check on it, please check on it, because by yourself, you couldn't have done it. Religion, medicine, and psychiatry had failed you. That's what I told them. And it had failed me. And here suddenly I stopped drinking, and 60 days into the program, that obsession, that thought of a drink was lifted from me. They call it the expulsion to the compulsion. And that was a spiritual experience, because all my life, from whenever I could remember, this obsession was always there, that nagging thought that somehow, someday I'll control my drinking, or if I would went someplace, the first thing I would look up is booze available there? What was the cost? Nothing else mattered, that was so obsessive. So the compulsion to the obsession was there. So I could start working on myself. And in the third step, it says, I handed over my will and my life over to the care of God as I understood him. The first time the word God comes into play. And this didn't really appeal to me, because this God of my understanding had done nothing for me as I could remember. I remember the last time I prayed, that was 7 years ago, before I quit drinking. I had gone on my knees and there were tears all over the place, crying, God, why are you making me suffer like this? I'm a pain to myself and to all those around me. Why? Please take me away. I don't want to live like this. And after that prayer, 7 years before I could quit drinking, or before I allowed God's will into my life, where I could sustain and stay away from a drink. So here it was, I had to take that 180-degree turn. I was going through, to a place where it was total insanity or premature death. To be torn between an alcoholic death or a spiritual way of life are not always easy alternatives to face. So I had to choose whether I want to live or die. I chose the latter. And I started working on myself through the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous with the help of a power greater than myself, which I call the gift of desperation. I was desperate to find a solution to my problem. And here was a group of drunks, who offered me a gift which was offered daily. They're a group of drunks who told me, stay away from it one day at a time. We'll love you till you learn to love yourself again. Please come back. And this is the only place where I heard them say, come back, So here I am in Alcoholics Anonymous. I've come to step 3, where I believe that it is this part. I just come to believe, it's like 3 frogs on a log of wood. Just imagine, close your mind and say 3 logs. There's a pond, and there's a log of wood there, and there are 3 frogs sitting on that log of wood. One frog decides to jump. So how many frogs are there? Genius like me, I said 2. My sponsor, he caught my ears and said, again, there are 3 frogs. One decided to jump. How many? I still couldn't figure out. That's a dodo I was. I thought I knew everything. I knew everything when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. So the frog only decided to jump. It didn't jump. It's only making a decision. It's a rational decision. I decide whether I want to drink or I don't want to drink, because that gift of choice was given to me the moment I stopped drinking. I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. The gift, I could choose whether I wanted to drink or I didn't want. So I decided to abstain from drinking. And to decide to abstain from drinking, I needed the help of a higher power. And that higher power manifested itself to me through the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, through you wonderful members who told me what this problem or what this sickness of alcoholism was all about. So you see, when God works, he works, and his ways are mysterious. And I didn't believe all this, that how could any human do that? How could he play God? How could you do this? And sure enough, there was a guy called God Eric in Bombay at that point of time. And I hated that because people, I believe in actuality, he was a very nice person who helped a lot of people. But people in AA used to call him God Eric, So there you are. I'm sorry, he's dead and gone. So I don't think that anonymity would really matter to that. So the God factor, what I'm trying to say is, I was so against this God factor, because that's how much I hurt. That's the pain, the trauma that I went through. Imagine nights of sleepless nights just living in your head. It's so toxic, it's so toxic. You twist and turn and twirl and sigh and do whatever you want, but that thought just nags you. Was there a moment of clarity? No, the only moment of clarity that I would have is I don't want to pick up a drink again. Slowly, this God factor infiltrated into me. And I accepted the fact that without the help of this power greater than myself, I couldn't do without alcohol. So to lift the obsession of alcohol, I had to substitute alcohol with this power greater than myself, given to me by you members of Alcoholics Anonymous. I believed you, because nothing else worked for me. And I suddenly stayed sober, and my life was changing. And that was something I couldn't understand, because change was something I resisted. In the 3rd step, when you take a 180-degree turn and then go back into your life to sort things out with the help of a power greater, that's change. It's a profound personality change that has made me do that. The divine intervention that got me into Alcoholics Anonymous. All you wonderful members out here, it's only a divine intervention that has got you here. And you're here to listen to how to bring about this profound personality change that can give me a life of freedom and a life worth living for. We thought, the alcoholic life was a life worth living. And, that's the freedom we sought, because alcohol gave me that illusion. Alcohol gave me wings, but took the sky away from me. What a delusion. What a deluded person I was. So here in 3rd step, I do that. And now I look back and then they say I need to do step 4, because if I don't clear up the garbage that I am filled with, the cesspool that is my head, the rent-free tenants living in my head, unless I knock them out, unless I make an inventory and find out what needs to be in and what needs to go, I may not survive the ordeal of alcoholism. So here, I'm willing now to take that risk. So I made a fearless moral inventory of myself, my sex conduct, the harms I've done to others, my security, financial security, my moral, all these things, the resentments that I have against others, I made a list. For the first time in my life, I started seeing myself. It was no more a sort of a story in my head. I saw pen to paper Philip, what Philip was what Philip has done and why did Philip do it? And what is the solution for Philip to get out of that, whatever he's into? So, when I saw that pen to paper, there was a sort of, a feeling of fear of unpicking. And that's where, I had to sit down in step 5 with another human being, with God, myself, and another human being, to know my exact nature of my wrongs. What are the exact natures? What I have written down? What harm I have done to others? What harm have I? See, the most harm I have done is to myself. And it came out of the ignorance that I was, the ignorant person that I was. Little things affect little minds. And I am being an hypersensitive person. Everything affected. I didn't have skin on, I had to grow new skin, they said. But how? I was hurting. I was scared. What will he think of me? If he knows who I am, what will he think of me? So the people-pleasing attitude came. And even though I suffered in my mind, I went out to reach out to people. So they say, why is that? That is because, my thinking faculty, my maladjustment, my thinking like normal people was not there. Right from my birth, from my childhood, I was a disaster waiting to happen. I was a time bomb waiting to explode. And I came into contact with alcohol and boom, everything started happening. Everything started. And there were ruins all around me. It's like the person they talk, the tornado, the man coming out of the storm cellar, the wind has blown away his house, his crops, the trees around his house. He's oblivious to all that. He says, oh, the wind stopped blowing. That's how an alcoholic is. I stopped drinking. And I said, oh, everything. And I stopped drinking. But what about the Rickies that I have written on? The people I have harmed, the family that, supported me. I made them disabilities, they became dysfunctional because of me. So they became codependents. So all this was playing in my mind. That was the guilt, the shame, the remorse that made me to drink again. So if I hadn't addressed those issues of, the guilt, the shame, and the remorse, how could I not stay from drinking? Think about it. The fears that engulfed me, the resentments that came with these fears, how the world had looked down on me, how the world had harmed me. These were my thoughts. So these thoughts had to change. So I decided, like I said, the frog in the pond, I decided to turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understood it. So I made a moral inventory with that help of that God. And now in fifth step, I sit down with somebody else and discuss it. They say you're as sick as your secrets. And there are some of my secrets that say I take it to the grave with me. But when I sit down with another man and I hear him say that, when I look at mine and I compare it with his, mine looks so trivial. I, who had thought, there was an atomic bomb that exploded around me, I realized that it was one of those firecrackers that didn't even go off. So much was the harm that I had done. So my head was my problem. And they say in the book, my sickness centers in my head. So I had to clear this head. And I again emphasize on step 3, this God factor, because without a power greater than myself, I cannot do this program. I cannot work this program. Sometimes even my sponsor alone, I remember my sponsor saying, let's go on my knees and ask God for help. So he didn't have the answer. We had to ask God for help. But that was the right way of doing things, which I didn't know. I lacked coping skills. I was learning coping skills here. And here, learning coping skills, I come against a wall because it involves change. And when I sit down with somebody else and talk about this, it's not so funny. I thought, my life was one big secret. But the whole problem was, by now I realized the whole world knew I had a problem. Only Philip didn't know he had a problem because he was in denial. Everything around him was natural, everything, so he just galloped his way through, even though he was a sore ass, it didn't matter. It just went through life. 22 years of drudgery. How could I just not, think about it? The good part, cream part of my life was gone from the age of 13 till 30, 31. Where did it go? I didn't have the fun normal kids had. I didn't go to movies. I didn't chase girls. I didn't do those mischiefs I could have done. No, I was trying to drink people under the table. So my knowledge was limited. My understanding was limited to what the barroom people, the discussions they had in the barrooms. Lying, stealing, cheating, slandering, character assassinating. I was very good at all these things. Now these things had to go. So, when I sat down with another human being and saw all these character defects, paraphrased in that, and saw me there, I had to ask, this is where, where the third step comes in, and the sixth step is so very corresponding with that. It says, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. I explain in every meeting what a character defect is. Any of my basic instincts, which if abused becomes a character defect, or if I overdo things. My basic instincts are instinct of survival, instinct of sex, instinct of security, and instinct of society. If I abuse these, if I go above normal and go around doing things that are not deemed of me, then it becomes a character defect. And that was very prevalent with me when I was drinking, because I needed it. These character defects were needed so that I could support my addiction. So it was a requirement at that point of time. Now in sobriety, it is no more a requirement. Yes, most of these character defects fall off. My lying, my cheating, my trying to slander others, all stops. But there are those deep emotional problems which I talk about in how it works. There are those too who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but they too recover if they have the capacity to be honest. So honesty is the core of this program. How honest am I with myself? How am I going to take care of my life? Am I willing to hand over my will and my life to this unseen God that we talk about? A has given me the choice to choose a God of my own understanding and comprehension. It does not come in the way. I can go back to the God of my childhood. But they told me, your understanding of what God is different from what the real God is. God is goodness. God is, when you split the word, it's godness. It's likeness of God. God has created you and me in his image. And that's what every religion says. My body is the temple of God. I'm a human being on a spiritual journey, and not a spiritual being. I'm a spiritual being on a human journey, and not a human being on a spiritual journey. So the spirit has taken the body as a vehicle and as moving on. But I don't value the spirit, and I have lost all human values, my moral ethics, everything, because I give more preference to my flesh. Being human, that's a frailty we all have. So corresponding to the flesh trait, the way the flesh reacts to the situations around me, my character defects support it. So you see where these character defects come from. It comes from the need of the flesh, from how people look at you wearing a good shirt. Oh, you need to say, oh, that's a Pierre Cardin. You say that's a Calvin Klein. So you are giving more emphasis onto the flesh and to the present day situation of what people think about you. In that, the God factor is lost, because here you're playing God. You're trying to project an image that, you are something beyond somebody else. So is that not the projection of trying to play God? So if you don't have it, you manipulate it. You try to get, people into your conscious way of thinking. So manipulation, that's again playing God. And that's what I did during my alcoholism. So these character defects are embroiled inside me. And they are so subtly powerful, and so they're hidden, from each other. But one thought can spark, it can ignite a chain of thoughts. It's like putting a videotape on, you put out a CD on, and it will go on playing till it makes you mad. So if you have to get this madness out of your head, this toxic place to be detoxified, there are a hell of a lot of people staying there without paying rent. If you have to remove them out of it, you have to understand basically what your problem is, and you can't do it without God's help. So here you are, we're entirely ready to have God remove these defects of character. I have a resentment against 4 people on this group. And I keep cursing them in my head, every day, every night, I keep cursing. If he didn't do this, if he didn't do that, if he had given me this, if he had given me this. There's no entirely any way of Philip doing it by himself. I needed the help. I had to talk to another human being about it. Because my instincts were on rampage. I felt somebody had done something wrong, which was not justifiable. But I didn't have a solution to deal with it. The problem is there. And as an alcoholic, I bombard a problem with a problem. It's like taking, you're having a headache and you're trying to hammer your head with a hammer, hoping that the headache goes. So here I'm told, you need God's help. And what did that member say? Pray about it. Hand it over. So step 6 and 7, and step 7 is, humbly ask him to remove my shortcomings. Now, shortcomings are the trigger points to a character defect. Stray thoughts that go your way, you nurture it in your head, and that, leads you to a character defect. Mischief. So when I ask God to entirely remove all these defects of character, it does not mean they'll be removed, but they will be moderated. I have an understanding of what a character defect is, what my character defects are, and when step 7, what will trigger me if I nurture these character defects. Like, let us say, early in sobriety, what is advised to a newcomer? Stay away from slippery places. Don't keep alcohol in your house. Don't visit friends who drink. Those are all trigger points. Those are slippery places, So those are shortcomings. I would go, curiosity killed the cat. Philip is sober 6 months or 2 months, and he says, oh, no, I'm okay. I'll go to the bar, sit down there and have a Coke. And then that becomes a habit. And then they say, if you hang around too long in a barber shop, you'll get a haircut. You get drunk and you come out and you wonder what happened to you. So, there are certain principles, there are certain disciplines which dictate the life that I'm going to live from here on. And that has to be a God-centered life. Selfishness, self-centeredness that we think is the root of our problems. Driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, we step on the toes of our fellows and seemingly they retaliate. So what do they say? In the end, that I had to quit playing God. I had to be substantiated by a God of my understanding. He becomes a father. He becomes my employer. He becomes my provider. So when I hand it over to God, things start changing. I'm no more trying to muscle my way through a crowd that's not going to budge. I am given a free will to live according to God's will. So step 6 and 7, God is doing the work. I'm doing nothing. I'm just handing it over to him, knowing what my shortcomings are, understanding that I cannot do it on my own. I need to let God handle this. They say this is what separates the men from the boys. That means I'm growing up, I'm maturing, I'm understanding what life is all about. I'm putting my hand into the hand of God and asking God to guide me through it. So the whole complexion, my way of thinking, my attitude, everything is changed. I had to die to my past so that, I could have a new way of life. I was reborn, the book says. Just think of it, So, those of you who are experiencing this change but didn't understand it, and when you hear me, maybe there are some similarities, that's a spiritual experience, which I used to take for granted. I knew everything. Today, when I say I don't know, things are revealed to me. More is revealed to me. I understand more. And that's humility. And all these steps are, steps that humble me. Without humility, I have nothing. Either God is everything or God is nothing. That means either God is everything or I am God. I quit playing God. And in step 8, what do? I made a list. I listed all those people and all those things that, were bothering me in my head. All those people who were staying rent-free in my head, I listed their names. Chalo, dekha jayega, let me see, And there are some of them who will nag and say, no, I'll stay back. No, we can try it. No. If you keep something back, that thing is going to nag you. He, she, or it. So might as well take, the trouble of putting it on paper. We will decide whether we need to eradicate that or not. And there, when I list it, I write down, I look at it, and against it, I start scoring. Why did this man hurt me? Or why did I feel the way I felt about this person? Why did I do this to that woman who thought, she loved me? Why did I rob the money from this person? So I have these things paraphrased now. The names, I list the names, I list the events, I list those people I had harmed, those things I thought were doing me wrong. And against it, I see, where I have to make amends. Where I was wrong, do I owe this guy a sorry? Do I have to repay this man? If I have done a criminal thing, how do I, make amends towards that? Now people have died, who have died and gone. What do I do about them? So I write that down, and then, on the right side, I see, over the resentment, whether it affected my self-esteem, self-worth, whether my pride was affected, ego was affected. These are the primary reasons why I resent, hurt, or harm other people. So when I understand that, I'm able to see what I need to do to correct these wrongs. And here again, I need the help of a sponsor, because in step 9, it says, make direct amends wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. It's very clear. I cannot buy my freedom at the cost of somebody else's life. Or I cannot buy my happiness by running down somebody else. I have to be very careful when I make these amends. And I can't do it without my sponsor's help. Some of these amends, I'm not ready to do it as yet. But if I'm hasty and go and do it, I might spoil a chance. I might have to make an amend, or maybe I'll pick up a drink. So I might as well wait and understand. And with God's help, the time and opportunity presents itself. Like I would say, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So most of these amends I've already done. Now, there are amends of people who are dead and gone. What do I do about them? Maybe I write them a letter. Maybe I go to the family, sit down with them and talk to them and say how much I cared about it. I'm sorry, but this is what happened. Now, there are people I owe money to. It's very, being the alcoholic that I just want to go and pay up all the bills, but I don't have the means for it. I stopped drinking, so everything should fall into place. No, don't be hasty. Sit down with your sponsor. When you have the ability to pay the person back, go get an appointment, sit down with him, tell him what you went through, say your present position, and say, I can pay you back on these grounds. Most people will meet you halfway. Supposing you had an affair with your neighbor's wife, or your school or childhood friend who is married to a person you can't go make amends to her or him and ruin their family life. There are certain things you need to use. By now, you become a little bit, wary of things. You start understanding things as well. You're growing up, you're maturing. And you may ask, was I not mature? No, when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, I had the, emotional maturity of an 8 or a 10-year-old. The child that was trapped in me. It didn't grow up. I always suppressed it. That's my conscience. That's my inner feeling. Today, when that child makes demands on me, I don't know how to deal with it. Because, certain things have to be done on certain times. But then, we went past that. So here I am, I'm making amends to these people. And the freedom one derives after they have made that amend. All those ghosts that lived in your head, all those cobwebs that was in your head, all those beds that you had rented to all those useless people who kept on tormenting you, they were all gone. They were all smoked out. You fumigated the place and you've got, you've got a new bed in place where you can sleep peacefully. For the first time in my life, I slept peacefully like a baby. Serenity was there, no absence of mental conflict, absence of spiritual conflict, and absence of moral conflict. Now, when they're absent, you get that freedom. You get that feeling of oneness. You get that feeling of belonging, that you are one with the Creator. So for those who think this is a punishing God, a God that didn't love you, just think of what all God carried you through. When you were going through all those turmoils, traumas, and pain, who was there with you? Again, I go back to the footprints on the sand. There was this God and me, walking together on the beach. Suddenly I fell asleep, I think, and then I saw only, I looked back and I saw only one set of footprints. And then I asked God, who was walking beside me, when I was sleeping, why did you leave me? When I was going through a bad time, why did you leave me? And God turned around and said, we walked together, but in between you fell asleep, and I was carrying you through. Those 2 footprints you see are mine. Now that you're better, let's walk together. So this is what God did to me when I was drinking. Believe me, I had to go through whatever I went through to be the person I am today, to be molded to be the person I am today. When he created Philip, he created a masterpiece. He created a wonderful human being. But Philip didn't understand what God's plan was. Philip had plans of his own. And that's where self-will ran riot. Instincts were on rampage. When these things are, how could God work with me when I am self-centered, I'm doing my own business, and I don't want anyone coming near me? How many times have our loved ones, told us, please don't drink like this. If you want help, we could give you help. What did we do? We pushed them away. Those were God's way of subtly approaching us, telling us, there is a way out. Me? No. I spoiled what God had made me to be, I marred it, God had created a masterpiece. God had plans for me, but I had plans for myself. So I went my way. And, like the straying away in the Bible, there's a story of the prodigals. And it was like that. I lost everything. I squandered off everything I had. And I came back, I came back to the Father and said, I'm sorry. And the Father held me and received me back, and took me into his house. That is step 9. So when I do that, when I have a clean slate, I come to step 10, which says, continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Now, why do I have to continue taking personal inventory? A simple reason that, it's written here on page 90 of the 12 and 12, the spiritual axiom that every time we are disturbed, no matter what the cause, there is something wrong with us. If somebody hurts us and we are sore, we are in the wrong also. But are there no exceptions to this rule? How about justifiable anger? If somebody cheats us, aren't we entitled to be mad? Can't we be properly angry and self-righteous folk? For us of AA, these are dangerous exceptions. We have found that justifiable anger ought to be left to those who are better qualified to handle it. We go through this on an everyday basis, getting angry with our maidservants or getting angry with our co-workers, road rage when you're on the road, these sort of things. And I carry that to bed. When I carry that to bed, that disturbs me. So what does the 10 step say? If you have done a wrong, clear that garbage then and there, finish it off, go take stock of yourself. Run through your day and see what is disturbing you. What could be done about it. Where you have to make amends, make amends. You don't want to rent more space in your head. You already cleaned that, do you want to get more garbage into that? You want to get more, non-committant tenants into your head? No. So might as well clear it on a daily basis. Look, when you did your 4-step inventory, you saw years of garbage inside that. Here, Since you have cleared away the wreckage of your past, now why do you want to accumulate any more clutter? So on a daily basis, if I have said abuse somebody and if that's harming me, I go and if I owe them an apology, I say, I'm sorry. If somebody, supposing I go to a restaurant and instead of paying me back 500, they paid me 5,000. Typical alcoholic, oh, I got a lottery, man, that's what me. But that's going to prick me sooner or later. So might as well return that 5,000. Let me be free of that. Money is something that, makes an alcoholic jump. He becomes a monkey on outbreaks when he has money with him. No matter how, because all instincts die hard. So here I am on 10th step, I make these amends on a daily basis. I ask God to forgive me. I ask God to forgive those who are there. So it's more of self-forgiveness. And all this, what you see is you are forgiving yourself, freedom from the bondage of self. 10, 11, and 12 are maintenance steps, which I do on a daily basis. So when I have cleared away this clutter, what do? I humbly, when I ask God, to come into my life and do what has to be done. I have to continue this on a rigorous basis, on a daily basis. If I don't do that, I'm very soon capable of becoming complacent. And complacency is something that's a character defect, which I have to be very watchful about. So what do? I go to step 11, which says sought through prayer and meditation. A lot more could be discussed about step 10, but then I just want to touch step 11, like you said yesterday, and 12. I just want to finish off with that. Step 11 says, sought through prayer, sought, seeking. I'm seeking through prayer and meditation. What is prayer? Prayer is the supplication to God. Meditation is trying to find the answers, what God, or prayer is talking to God, and meditation is trying to listen to what your conscience or what God is telling you. To improve my conscious contact with God as I understood Him. So what was my understanding of God? And what is my understanding of God now that I have come to step 11? Is He a loving, punishing God? Is He a caring God? Is He a God of love and compassion? Or is He still a punishing God that I thought He was all the time? So if it is a punishing God, there's no point in praying there, isn't it? And we are not going to make bargains with God, are we? That's what we did, didn't you? Give me a bottle, God, and I will do this. Give me this. Go to this church and say, you give me a job, my first salary is yours. The barter system. God does not want any of those things from you, my friend. I also thought so from one point of time, but God just wants me to live a human life, use my human faculties. The goodness that is Godness in me, to be a part of the human race, to help one another. I was a selfish, self-centered guy. I had to come out of that selfishness and be the person God wanted me to be. And what did God want me to be? God wanted me to be of help to those who needed help. So I had to reach out. A discipline that I have is, I could reach out to those who are less fortunate than me. How many of us, do that? It needn't necessarily be an alcoholic. It could be anyone, who's looking for a meal. Someone who's looking for a medical attention. Someone who wants to travel but does not have the fare. The act that you do has to be selfless and it has to come from within you. And where does that come from? It comes from a power greater than yourself that generates that will to help somebody else. So when you help somebody, you're matching God's will. When you do a human act like that, your self-esteem, your self-worth, your self-respect is lifted. Remember when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, I had absolutely no dignity also. I was washed out. So here God has put me on a pedestal. He says, these are the things you got to do. Carry the message to the next suffering alcoholic. Am I doing it by just attending meetings, or am I reaching out? Ask those people who are working, in the fellowship, who are in service, who are reaching out to others. See how their lives are enriched. Do you do that? I have a moral obligation towards a fellowship. It gave me my sobriety. So what am I doing? So the book says it's a paradox. Unless I give what I have, I won't receive more. And it's like the Dead Sea. The Dead Sea is an acumen of salt and, all waste matter. People float in it. It's fully impure. But the Red Sea, which is beside it, it flows, there's fish, there's marine life, there's everything. So we ought to be, flowing like the river that goes into the sea, rather than a small lock of land, like a pond that stagnates. We were stagnated, but now we've got a small culvert, a small, canal that is being put into the mainstream of life. So when I am willing to let that happen, I'm letting God enter my life. It says, deep within every man, woman, and child is the basic instinct of God. It may have been marred by calamity, pop, and other issues, but it was there. Now I had to find that God. And that Godness, the goodness was in me. The God was in me. My body is a temple of God and God resides in me. I said earlier, we are not human beings on a spiritual journey. We are spiritual beings on a human journey. I found that spirit that was wandering in the wilderness. I brought it back into the temple that God had built for it. Today I have compassion, I have empathy, I have love. Where did all this, was this not there early? It was there, but it was marred by calamity, pomp, and other issues. Today I'm flowering, I'm able to reciprocate and able to give it out. So the motto of steps 11 is, seeking through prayer and meditation, trying to understand God's will for me. Go to a quiet place, sit down there, say the serenity prayer. If you say the serenity prayer, like, again, let us talk about St. Francis de Assisi's prayer, Lord, make me a channel of thy peace, that where there is hatred, I may bring love. Transformation, hatred, love. It's a huge change. That's a shift. Where there is wrong, I may bring the right spirit of forgiveness. I always was a negative person. That there is discord, I may bring harmony. That where there is error, I may bring truth. And where there is doubt, I may bring faith. And where there is despair, I may bring hope. That where there are shadows, I may bring light. And where there is sadness, I may bring joy. Lord, grant that I may seek to comfort, than be comforted. To understand, than be understood. To love, than to be loved. For it is by forgetting that one finds, it is by forgiving that one is forgiven. It is by dying that one awakens to eternal life. Amen. When you say it is by dying, don't take it in the literal sense. The book says, I died to my past so that I could be reborn into a new way of life. So I had to die to my past. Please resonate, go through this prayer, meditate over it, think what it is, and that is what it is. A simple form of meditation, I would say, for those who don't, my mind is so active, it's all over the place. What meditation requires is a quiet mind. The mind should be quiet, but for me, it's never quiet. Now, how do I meditate and come out of it? A simple formula is, when you go to an AA meeting, you go in with a disturbed mind. Invariably, when you walk out of the meeting after 45 minutes or 1 hour, you're calm, you're composed, and you have an answer to that whole khichdi that was happening in your head. That's meditation, because you become focused. You go in disturbed. When you listen to a few sharings, when you see the synergy, you feel that synergy of all these collected people together, the singleness of purpose, you get focused into that. And you get answer come to you, because you set your house in order, you're thinking in order. And so there's a calmness that prevails. So that's a simple form, of telling you what meditation is all about. I think I've overrun time today. I think we'll go over this 11 and 12, the next session again, but thank you very much for having turned up. I hope all you guys had a wonderful Christmas without a drink. I had so much of cake, so many cookies, hugs from my loved ones, my little girls and others. I'd been to a church after such a long time, not for myself, but for my daughter, because she was conducting an affair there. And that was a moral obligation I had towards her, which I could do. These are things. So it was a wonderful, so this Christmas season, or this season of love and hope and giving, let us see what we can give to one another. Because without us, we are not, singleness of purpose is lost. I'm not there, you're not there. So together, let us make this program work for each of us in our lives. With that, I sign off. Thank you very much for listening to me. And I hope to conclude this STEP workshop next week. Thank you very much, Hemant. Thank you very much, Arun. And thank you one and all, each one of you, for turning up and making this meeting possible. Thank you very much. Good luck. God bless.